keep winning, winning. I'ma keep winning, winning. Ooh. I'ma keep winning, winning. You can try to save yourself, but you only gon' play.
What's going on, guys? JK, I'm back with another video, and today I'm finally bringing you my final mock draft before the NFL draft starts tomorrow. Now, in this one, I will not be doing any trades, although I do think quite a few trades are going to happen. They're a little bit harder to predict. I think some teams are going to be trading up in the back half of the first round to be able to go get a quarterback like a Jackson Dart or Shador starts to fall. But I'm not going to be doing trades just because of this simulator doesn't allow trades unless you pay for it. But before we get into it, please make sure to like the video, comment down below anything you agree or disagree with that I talk about in here, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for future NFL content. So it's going to be a little bit difficult not doing it without trades, 'cause I do think quite a few are going to happen. But jumping into this, I'm going to go ahead and start with the Tennessee Titans. They're going to be taking Cam Ward, #1 overall tomorrow night. It's pretty much a lock. If you look at it in the interview of him playing games, he said Tajay Spears is a #1 running back in the NFL, #1 receivers, Calvin Ridley. Pretty much a lock to Tennessee. If you're at #1 and you feel confident in a quarterback, you go ahead and take him and take that swing. So they're going to be taking Cam Ward #1 overall. Jumping to #2, there has been reports that the Browns and the Giants have been fielding calls for the #2, #3 overall pick. I do think that there could be a couple teams looking to trade up, but I think it'd be too far down for the Browns or Giants. I think that they're both going to stick and pick. And the report for the last about 2 weeks or so, Browns are going to be taking Travis Hunter. It could also have been Abdul Carter, but I think they've pretty much locked in on Travis Hunter. They could end up with Hunter and Shador later in the draft, depending on what trades might go down. But with Travis Hunter, he could play corner for him. He could play receiver. I think this gives them. This is one of the actual spots that would allow him to be able to play both sides. So he's just another weapon at quarterback, whoever they end up going with, or he's gonna end up being able to step in and play cornerback as well at a high level with his high ball skills that he would have at the quarterback position. The New York Giants stepping in here. Like I said, I think they're locked in on Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter, this would make Kayvon Thibodeau a little bit expendable. Do they end up trading him on draft night? Do they just not pick up his fifth-year option and play out next year with the three-man rotation of Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, and Kayvon Thibodeau? Thibodeau's been a little bit disappointing. Abdul Carter can come in and do pretty much all of it. Once he became a pure edge rusher, he dominated every college football game he was in. We know all about him for the past couple months, the entire offseason cycle. Abdul Carter is pretty much that guy. He's, in my opinion, he's the #1 player in this draft class. And obviously the #1 pure edge rusher in this class. So he's going to be a difference maker and a game changer for the Giants. The Patriots, I'm still going to stick with Will Campbell like I've had in the last couple mocks. Now, if you've watched any of my videos in the past, I'm not the biggest Will Campbell guy. I don't think that he could end up playing guard. If you end up drafting Will Campbell, I think he has to play left tackle. And I just don't really like the explosion of him. He's not very explosive off the line and doesn't really do a whole lot. But I think the Patriots are going to be looking for protection of Drake May. I would not be surprised if this was Ashton Genty at #4. I will not be shocked if that's the case, but right now I'm going to go Will Campbell. I think they've kind of owned in their eyes on Will Campbell, and he's going to be that true franchise left tackle that they have. And pretty much their entire left side of their offensive line is not good, and they need to upgrade it. They went out and got the right tackle in free agency, and they just want to set up Drake May and protect him. Um, to pretty much be the most successful that he could be. And you do that, you go out, they got Stephon Diggs, and you get his protection. #5, Jacksonville Jaguars. This a lot of people have said this is the wild card team. Nobody really knows what they're going to do. But with Jacksonville Jaguars, the last day or so, the rumor has been that they're gonna take Ashton Genty, and they've kind of homed in on him. And I'm gonna go ahead and mock it here in my final mock draft. It's going to be very interesting because you have Liam Cohen as the head coach. At times last year when he was OC in Tampa Bay, he would kind of get away from the running game. So, would they really want a guy like Ashton Genty in the run game? You know, there are several different pieces. Mason Graham is the one that fits very well in here, so it could still be him. But I'm gonna go ahead and say that they go ahead and take Ashton Genty unless somebody moves up in front of him. to number 4 with the Patriots. And I think that could be a difference maker. Obviously, they would get rid of Travis Etienne. If this was the case, they would end up trading him and letting him go, and bring in Ashton Jeanty to kind of help out Trevor Lawrence. But it'd be a very interesting move. It might hurt their front office. New GM, new head coach might give them a little bit of a reputation, but we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be crazy on draft night. Number 6, the Raiders. The reports are is that they're out on Ashton Jeanty, and I think that no matter if he's on the board or not, they're going to go with Armand Membu. Uh, Armand Membu is going to end up playing right tackle for the Raiders. They still have Colt Miller, who has been having a little bit of contract issues with the Raiders, but I don't think that's too much of an issue. They still have the whole offseason and all summer to do that. So Armand Membu come in and play right tackle right now. They could just pretty much they just need more talent. It's one of the least talented teams in the NFL. He could be a major upgrade in the running game. They still have Samir White, who could end up playing there for this year before, or they go in, pretty much they could pretty much just go in and get a running back later in the draft, who in a very deep running back class to be able to upgrade that position and hit a couple other ones later in the draft. So Armand Membu and they're at right tackle for the Raiders. The Jets, this one is also very interesting. I've seen like 5 different guys in the last 24 hours be mocked to him. Is it Mason Graham? Is it Tyler Warren? In this case, as a Jets fan, I would want them to take Mason Graham, but I think with the sources, Jade Barron's also been mentioned. I think that they're gonna go with Tyler Warren here if Mimbu's not on the board. And obviously he can do everything. He could play tight. He could play tight end, but you could pretty much line him up anywhere. He could line up with his hand on the ground at the end of the line of scrimmage. He could line up out in the slot. He could pretty much do everything. You could put him in at Wildcat quarterback in certain packages, kind of like the Chiefs have done with Travis Kelce. You could do all the type of stuff with Tyler Warren. He's more of that George Kittle type vibe, and he's going to be pretty much a game changer for whatever team ends up drafting him. And he could potentially be, is he Brock Bowers? No, they play totally two different styles, but they can both be very good, effective tight ends at this whenever they end up getting drafted. Number 8, the Panthers. I think this could be Mason Graham. They could look for the interior, but I think they're going to look at the edge spot. And this has been kind of mocked for a while now. It's going to have him listed as linebacker, I believe, if I can go and find him. But Jalen Walker, number 8 to the Panthers. He's the main edge guy. He's a little bit smaller, so that may be, a little bit of a complaint for him. But the Panthers have kind of honed in on Jalen Walker from a lot of the sources. This could also be Tedero McMillan. But Jalen Walker gives them, they have one of the worst defenses in the NFL last year. They need to give Bryce Young some help. And you do that by upgrading the defense and getting your pure pass rusher of the future. And that could be Jalen Walker if he's developed the right way to be able to use a combination of his power and speed that he has to be able to develop in one of the more dominant pass rushers in the NFL. Number 9 at this position, I think this could be Kelvin Banks, is an interesting spot. The reports are is that they're out on Shedeur Sanders, so they're not really going to be going after Shedeur Sanders. At this point, with Mason Graham falling, I'm going to go with Mason Graham on the interior defensive line. A lot of the reports has been either that they're going to go defensive line or they're going to go offensive line or weapon. And I think defensive line Mason Graham falling to the spot makes a lot of sense for them, to be able to plug in that interior defensive line that they can end up helping out Cam Jordan up there and just, they can attack their quarterback in the later rounds, depending on what the whole Derek Carr situation is going to be. Chicago, this kind of puts them in a bad spot. And a couple other mocks, they've had them trading back. A lot of the guys that they would take here are not available. This could be somebody like a Michael Williams here at the edge rushing position, edge rusher, but I'm gonna have them still taking running back. This is kind of a wild card team if the board falls this way. I'm gonna have them take on Marion Hampton. Hampton's a guy that I think is gonna go very high in the draft. I think he would be the first running back and be taken very highly in the draft if Ashton Jeanty wasn't in it. But they really just need. I feel like Ben Johnson coming from that offense in Detroit, he's going to look to upgrade the offense line and running back position as much as he can, just how he did in Detroit. And it's going to be that kind of same way to make Caleb Williams' life a little bit easier. And they're going to do that with Marion Hampton. Number 11, 49ers. They still need cornerback. This could be Walter Nolan, but I'm going to go with Johnny Barron. This is a guy that's been talked about as the number one corner in this class once he kind of took over Will Johnson's spot in this draft class. Looking at it, 49ers need a cornerback. They could go offensive line here, but Robert Saleh coming back in as the defensive coordinator, I think he's going to look to get his number one corner. Now, the question is, he's going to be able to place the slot corner spot, but how much on the boundary is he going to play? But I think he's going to be just fine with his speed and his physical attributes that he has to be able to play on the boundary, and the 49ers are going to value that and want to have him as their number one corner. The Dallas Cowboys, I'm gonna say they go back with a weapon and get Tedero McMillan. 6'5" guy, huge catch radius. The Cowboys are kind of always just sit still and end up letting the draft come to them and just take the best player on their board. And Tedero McMillan would be that. I think he'd be a great complementary piece to CeeDee Lamb to help out Dak Prescott. I will say I will not disregard that maybe they could take a Tyler Booker and then tier the offensive line. It could be a little bit high for him or another offensive lineman piece, maybe a Kelvin Banks. But as of right now, I see them going weapon. If Tedero McMillan's on the board, he'd be a great piece to go alongside with CeeDee Lamb, and it'd be kind of similar to what they did in the CeeDee Lamb draft. Just sat back and then let CeeDee Lamb come to them. Same thing with Tedero McMillan here. Number 13, Teron Armstead ended up retiring from the Miami Dolphins, and I think that they're going to look at and try to upgrade it to protect Tua at that left tackle spot, and they're going to take a guy like Kelvin Banks. Kelvin Banks could play guard, could play tackle, but if he gets drafted here, he's probably going to take and play that left tackle spot just to be able to help protect Tua. They do need to upgrade at cornerback. What are they going to do with Jalen Ramsey? But I think that they're going to address that in the second round, and hopefully be able to upgrade that cornerback room because it's god awful. But I think they're going to focus the protection of Tua in their first round pick. Number 14, this is the team that could move up. The Colts could definitely move up to go and get either Tyler Warren or one of their guys. And right here, they sit back and they go ahead and get Colston Loveland. Colston Loveland's more that Brock Bowers type guy that's going to come in. They're pretty much just going to try to surround Anthony Richardson to give him the best possible ability to be able to succeed. And with these weapons and the offensive line could definitely need an upgrade. But if he cannot succeed next year, they're probably going to be moving on if he ends up struggling. So this is kind of your final get him some weapons and see what he can do. And if he doesn't develop, then we're going to go quarterback in next year's draft class. The Falcons, I think they need to go edge rusher, but more importantly, they just need defense in general. And Jahad Campbell is a guy that is going to go very high in this class and could go higher than what people think. Normally I have him to the Buccaneers, but I'm gonna move him up here to this Falcons spot. They could go edge rusher later in the draft. And Jahad Campbell, with his combination of speed and play recognition, he's almost always in there on every play at linebacker slot. He's making almost every tackle, or he's in there on every tackle somehow. The Cardinals, this is a sneaky team to go receiver. I know they could use a corner, so Will Johnson could come off the board here, but I think that they're going to focus on getting weapons for Kyler Murray and someone to go along with Marvin Harrison. So I'm going to have them get Matthew Golden here. Matthew Golden is a guy that pretty much made every big play that Texas needed. Once Isaiah Bond went out and had his injury, Matthew Golden stepped up and was the number one receiver for Texas. He could play out of the slot, he could play on the outside. He has the speed. He's one of the more speedier guys in this class. And he would be a good piece to go alongside with Marvin Harrison, a totally different wide receiver play style, and they would pretty much mesh well together to be pretty much the core receiving, kind of similar to Rondale Moore that they had in Arizona for a couple years. Cincinnati Bengals, they need edge rusher. Mike Green was the most productive edge rusher in college football last year. He had the most sacks. He had the most tackles for losses. He dominated the Senior Bowl in the offseason. And I think with them getting an edge rusher, not only I think their idea would be to pair him up with Trey Henderson, but getting an edge rusher, I feel like that makes Trey Henderson kind of accessible, and they could kind of end up trading him if they can't get a contract done, and then have Mike Green come in there and just take his spot right away. The Seahawks, they still need interior offensive line. That's something I thought that they would attack in free agency, and they just didn't. And pretty much one of the better interior guys and a guy that would play center for them if drafted, is actually listed as a tackle, is Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. He's a guy, he would come in and fill their center spot right away. But if they needed him to, he can play all five positions on the offensive line. He can play center, he could play guard, or he could play tackle. He's just a valuable piece that way. And at the Senior Bowl, he rose up a lot of boards because a lot of the questions was, since he played at North Dakota State, can he play at a high level with all the other guys? Well, he went to the Senior Bowl and pretty much beat everybody and every one on one and had an amazing week against all the other talent out there. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 19. Think they would want Jahad Campbell, but he's off the board, and they're gonna go with Donovan Ezeroku from Boston College. This is a guy that has the freak talent and the freak measurables, but also has the production to be able to back it up from Boston College this past year. So he has really both of those. He has a great speed and use of hands is where he really excels. His use of hands and being able to put that together with the power that he has, he could be a very good edge rusher for whatever team ends up drafting him. A lot of the edge rushers in this class are very similar, but he not only has those measurables that a lot of the other guys have in this class, but he also has the production to go along with it. The Denver Broncos, I think they desperately want running back. There's been rumors that maybe they could try to move up for Ashton Genty and be able to draft Ashton Genty. They're in talks. Maybe they could move up for Amarion Hampton. Obviously, both those guys are off the board. So I think Sean Payton would really just go for an offensive weapon here. And Emeka Ibuka, a lot of people aren't as high on him in the media, but the NFL, it seems like that they're a lot higher on him than what everyone else is. A lot of these teams are. And I think that he's a guy. He's mostly the rack guy can is pretty much ability after the catch. He could go out of the slot for him, and they really just want weapons to be able to help out Bo Nix. They one got Evan Ingram in the free agency. And I think that they're going to want a running back, but since it's so deep, they could easily just go wide receiver and get a weapon, and then go and maybe get a Quinshon Judkins in the second round, third round, maybe a Travion Henderson. They could end up moving up into the early second round and getting him, but they're going to go ahead and just get their wide receiver weapon for Bo Nix here. The Steelers, they need quarterback desperately. They could end up going Walter Nolan for the interior defensive line to go alongside with Cameron Hayward, but with Shador falling and him still on the board, there's going to be a team I think that's going to move up for him to jump the Steelers. Maybe the Broncos trade back and a team jumps them to be able to get him. But Shador, obviously, he was talked as the number two overall pick. Then he was seen as the number nine overall pick to the Saints, and then it was like the reports were that the Saints were out on him, and now he's just kind of falling down the board. I think a lot of these quarterbacks are going to end up going in this late first round, but I'm just not doing trades, so I can't really predict it here. But I think a lot of teams will end up moving up for these guys, and Shador just pretty much falls into the Steelers' lap here in a position of need. The Chargers, they probably want wide receiver or tight end, but a lot of those guys are off the board. They could go receiver here, but I think Jim Harbaugh, as a head coach, is going to value the trenches, and they need to be able to get better on that interior defensive line and just get more physical, as we've seen when they played the Texans. And Walter Nolan is in there. I love Walter Nolan. This is a guy that some people have projected to be in the top 10. And some people have number 11, the 49ers. That wouldn't shock me. But just how this board falls out and how the teams are, he just kind of falls down a little bit. And, he pretty much dominated everybody at the Senior Bowl again, one of those type of guys. And throughout the offseason, he just kind of kept rising and to solidify himself as a first round pick. And he kind of falls down a little bit out of the teens into the Chargers to pretty much just step right in and be that interior defense line piece for him. The Green Bay Packers here, they need a cornerback, and Will Johnson falls into the lap again. Obviously, they have injury. He's had injury histories, so he's kind of fallen down the board. His speed's been a little bit questionable. He didn't run the 40, but the Green Bay Packers, they're probably going to be moving on from Jair Alexander. How whatever ends up happening there to trade them, they just need another corner. They could end up going one of the edge pieces, but a couple of those guys have been picked. And Will Johnson being the number two corner off the board, he's just gonna slot in and take that Jair Alexander spot right there. The Minnesota Vikings. I'm gonna have him taking the first safety off the board, a guy that had one of the best safety combines of all time. They're gonna be taking Nick Emenwari from South Carolina. I really do like him. If you look at the tape, he has that freak athletic ability, but he also just goes and makes plays and has the IQ. He could be a box safety, or he can wide him out and be able to cover other positions on the outside. He's kind of reminds me a lot of Harrison Smith, and to be able to go in there, Harrison Smith's probably going to play one more year. He can learn under him, play alongside him, maybe at that free spot, and then take over for Harrison Smith once he's done. The Texans, they revamped their entire offensive line, and I think they're going to look to try to get protection for CJ Stroud. Josh Simmons could go a lot earlier. He ended up having a really bad knee injury, so he missed pretty much the entire year. He only played 6 games his senior year. So with the Texans, they're just looking to get their franchise left tackle ever since they traded Laremy Tunsil for pretty much nothing. They ended up letting go of Kenyon Green. So they need to upgrade and figure out that offensive line to help out CJ Stroud so he doesn't get killed again in the playoffs like he did against the Chiefs towards the end of last year. The Rams, I think this is a spot where a team like the Browns or the Giants could move up here to be able to select Jackson Dart, but I'm not doing trades, so I'm gonna have them making the pick here, and I'm gonna have them going with corner, and I'm gonna have them go with Maxwell Hairston. Maxwell Hairston showed out the combine as well. He was probably the fastest guy there at the combine. And he does have some question marks about his coverage ability, and his tackling ability is really his pretty much his main knocks, but he has great ball he plays the ball in the air great, and he has amazing speed to be able to make up for his lack of coverage where he gets burnt sometimes. But so his speed is so elite that ends up helping him out in coverage. Baltimore Ravens, Malachi Starks falls in their lap. He could be a great piece to go alongside with Kyle Hamilton. With him, end up falling here to go alongside with him. It's pretty much the same thing how they got Kyle Hamilton, and this would pretty much upgrade their secondary to be one of the best secondaries in the NFL. I think Malachi Stark's going to be the second safety off the board. I think Nick Emenwari is going to go above him. He ended up having a little bit of a down year, so some teams he kind of just kept falling on the board throughout this offseason process. The Detroit Lions, they could go edge rusher here. I like Donovan Ezra for him, but he's off the board. He got picked earlier to the Buccaneers. So I'm gonna have them going with offense line. They ended up losing Kevin Zeitler in free agency, so they need to be able to replace him. I'm gonna have them going with a guy that can play guard or tackle, and Donovan Jackson. This is a guy that really showed out in the college season once Josh Simmons ended up going down. He started out at guard. He played guard at a very high level at Ohio State. Then Josh Simmons ends up getting hurt and goes out pretty much the rest of the year, and he's able to slot over the left tackle and play it at a very high level as well. So he has multiple spots in the offensive line. I think for the Lions, he would slide right in, play guard next to Penei Sewell in that Kevin Zeitler spot, and be able to pretty much play it at a high level with this combination of being able to pass block and be able to move guys in the running game to be able to create those gaps in that dominant running game that Detroit likes to have. The Commanders, they need edge, and Shamar Stewart's still on the board. He pretty much had similar to Nick Emenwari. He had one of the best combines in NFL history. Now his question is, can he be able to have that production? He didn't really show off the production in college, but if you could pretty much draft him, he's similar, in my opinion, to someone he's very similar to someone like Trayvon Walker from a couple years ago that has all the athletic abilities. He just needs to be able to pretty much hone that in and be coached up to be able to develop that. The Buffalo Bills, I think that they're gonna hone in on corner, but I think that they're gonna wait a little bit, seeing that not a lot of the corners have gone in this draft, and we're gonna look at another edge player and go with Michael Williams from Georgia. This is another guy very similar to Shamar Stewart. He has all the tools in the world. He has all the athletic ability. He just needs to be developed and be able to be coached up to be an athlete in the NFL and be able to hone that in to be effective at the edge rushing position. The Chiefs, Josh Connerly still there. They need a left tackle. They ended up trading away Joe Thuney to the Bears. He was actually playing left tackle for him, even though he's mostly a guard. They ended up having to re-sign Trey Smith. They still have Creed Humphrey. They just have a glaring hole at that left tackle spot, and Josh Connerly would be the left tackle for them to be able to help out Patrick Mahomes. He pretty much got dominated in the Super Bowl, and Josh Connerly could hopefully make it to where they don't have a repeat of that. And in the Eagles, they always play this game where the best guy just falls in their lap and they end up taking them. And I think that's James Pierce. James Pierce has character issues. He could easily fall out of the first round and be a second round pick. I wouldn't be shocked. But he has all the athletic ability in the world. He had the production 2 years ago at Tennessee. A lot of people had him as the #1 overall pick coming into this year, but he kind of struggled and didn't really put it all together in back-to-back seasons. So he's definitely fallen down. He could easily not go here, and they could go another spot and go with like a Derek Harmon or somebody. But I think they're going to look at that edge spot to try to replace Josh Sweat. And James Pierce hopefully could home back in and not be a character issue. The Eagles have done a pretty good job. Same thing happened with Jalen Carter, who was seen as character issue, but they were able to control him in that locker room. So this is a recap of my final NFL mock draft for tomorrow. We're going to see how it goes and how it ends up playing out tomorrow during the draft on Thursday night. Please make sure to like the video. Comment down below anything you agreed or disagree with that I did in here, any of the picks I made, anything I talked about, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for future NFL content that I'm going to be putting out. And thanks for watching.
Yeah, feel like John Morant. Need a triple-double. Told him check the stats. Yeah, I got a couple. I don't drop the ball. Now I never fumble. I'm the MVP. Now I feel like Russell. Feel like John Morant. Need a triple-double. Told him check the stats. Yeah, I got a couple.